We should be starting up now. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the awesemo.com live before lock show. We're taking you through the day's 5-game NBA main slate on DraftKings in particular. You heard about it all day on our channel. Split slates today with all the sites doing something different, but hopefully it'll help some FanDuel people out there for their slates, in addition to all the DraftKings players out there. I'm Chris Spags, joined by a guy I haven't seen in feels like forever. Got to enjoy some life out there in Sonoma. Josh Engelman. How are you doing, Josh? Welcome back.
I'm pretty good. I'm tired. It feels like it's only 3:30, but I guess it is 3:30 somewhere, i.e. for you right
Literally
now.
right here, yeah.
Yeah. But no, I feel pretty good. It's weird. I don't like being away. Like, I enjoy myself when I am away, but you really do get into this day-to-day pattern, and you get really used to just like looking at a spreadsheet and digging into basketball, or looking at a spreadsheet and digging into baseball. And when you separate yourself from that for a couple of days, you come back and you're just like, I don't get from step A to step B the same way. Something's really wrong here. Like, apparently a couple boards broke. I got to step over that, find a different path. It takes a couple of days to like get your bearings again.
Yeah, we are very much creatures of habit with this job, and as frequently as we're doing the content, but that's what makes us so great. But you know what, Josh? I think one thing that'll be reassuring for you, one thing that didn't change while you were gone, is that the future of DFS is still here right now with SuperDraft. Of course, if you go right now to superdraft.io or download SuperDraft in the App Store, you step to the future of DFS. You're going to experience SuperDraft's exclusive game mode multiplier, where you say goodbye to salary restrictions and hello to lineup freedom. Use your fantasy sports knowledge to draft any player you want and build your very own dream team. Countless lineup possibilities let you experience daily fantasy sports the way that you want. SuperDraft offers contests for NFL, MLB, NBA, NHL, and PGA, so you can enjoy the best of DFS all year round. Sign up for SuperDraft today using the promo code AWESEMO to get yourself $20 in super cash if you deposit $100 or more. That's all for you right now at superdraft.io or SuperDraft on the App Store. And check them out right now because it's SuperDraft. There are no limits, more winning. Josh, do you feel reassured now to know that SuperDraft is still there for you?
I do. That actually makes it easier because you don't have to really remember anything about salaries. That would be a much easier site to come back to.
Exactly. It's like Back to the Future, except the Back to the Future of DFS, a terrible movie spinoff that will probably not get made, but worth a shot. I think
some of their own sequels were terrible as well, like the third one.
But I think they did include Michael J. Fox making love to his own grandmother. So or is that Futurama did that? I forget. I forget how that goes.
Well, his mom was into him in the first one,
right?
And he was no, Mom.
Futurama went a level beyond, where Fry actually ended up his own grandfather, I believe, in a Back to the Future scenario where he made sweet love to his grandmother, and it turned out he was actually his own grandfather in some sort of paradoxical situation.
Not on our link, or not in that one, not in the real one.
Okay, so I must have mixed those up. Either way, you know what? Let's live in the present right now, and let's talk about the Portland Trailblazers, because I'm curious about your thoughts on these guys. Obviously, you're usually playing FanDuel. Today, these DK prices are going to be the most relevant, and you have a guy in Gary Trent who just went off the other day, a player who really hasn't been that productive, about a 0.7 fantasy point per minute player. Shot 12 for 18 off the bench, earned himself more minutes, went nuts. Can't expect him to shoot 66% again, given that he's a 40% shooter on the year. Probably doesn't have that upside generally. But him, Anthony Simons, Mario Hezonja, even Nasir Little, you could probably make arguments for a lot of these guys because there's so many minutes to go around for this depleted Portland lineup, depleted by both trades and injuries. Which guys do you feel most comfortable with? And is there any of them that you would find to be a fade? Because I know you generally find these guys close to minimum price to be pretty playable generally.
They are pretty tasty, if I do say so myself. It's really hard to avoid Portland today. On DraftKings, I have basically 6. Hold on, 1, 2, 3. I have 6 guys from Portland ranked as in my top 7.
Wow. Okay.
It's so silly. They're Trent is 3,200. He's going to play enough minutes that I think that he is very, very viable. I think Mario Hezonja is viable. Love Whiteside at 7,500. Love Anthony Simons at 3,900. I mean, there are 3 guys that are I can't say lock because that's not the term that I want, but there are 3 guys from the Blazers that you cannot really go wrong with. They can bust, but they don't. Simons, Hezonja, Trent, none of them will preclude you from cashing, or at least shouldn't preclude from cashing. there's just an infinite amount of value. They just don't have enough bodies right now.
Yeah, so I'm with you on it. I've tried to get away for tournaments from Simons and from Trent in particular, just because he's such a hard value to pass up at 3,200 on DK. Simon's a little bit easier to get away from at 3,900, but overall, like their prospects here are really strong. It's going against Golden State, not a good team. They had the minutes, as you mentioned last game. Hazonia saw big minutes, Trent saw big minutes, Simon saw big minutes in particular against an Oklahoma City team. It's a better defensive team than they'll see today against Golden State. So I'm with these guys, and Lillard is my top owned play on the day. I know it sucks because he's chalky. He's going to be 46% owned in our most recent run of ownership, which just came out right now. If you want to get that for yourself at osmo.com/join, use the promo code live before lock if you want to get in there for half off your first week of any Osmo Plus weekly package. But like Lillard to me, I think looks great. Whiteside as well. I feel like he's a top center play by a pretty wide margin. Which of these guys, if any, will you be under the field on, or is there anybody who you would want to move away from, or are you just willing to take them as they come because they all look so strong for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. At least I just pulled up the new ownership. I feel like Dame's a little high. Alex loves him from a projection standpoint, so I might just be like slightly light. I think Whiteside's ownership looks perfect. He is the chalk, and I think that's exactly what he should be. Similar take for me from Simons, third most owned guy. He is right at the top for me. I think Melo's probably going a little bit up underrepresented of everybody here. I would like to take a little bit of the DK ownership from Lillard and move that over towards Melo in this spot. I think that's the biggest sort of gap for me.
He seems like he's due for some positive regression. It's odd that he's like been a 0.74 fantasy point per minute guy with McCollum off and Lillard on. I don't really get what that is. And it's a big enough sample size where it just kind of threw me for a loop. And I guess maybe he's just not Lillard's most frequent assist man, though logically I don't get where else the ball's going. But I agree. Like I think he's due for a bounce back. At his price point, I'm not dying to get there. But in this matchup, I agree he's worth some exposure. I do think Hazonia is kind of the undersold gem of them all because he's a guy who can add in a bunch of different categories. Even if he doesn't score, he's had decent days against Golden State in the past. Granted, a very different Golden State team with the ones we've had in previous years. Yeah. But Hazonia to me, I think is intriguing. Melo's intriguing. I think I'm willing to just mix these guys and cut up some ownership to make sure you get a little bit of everybody because it wouldn't shock me if any of these guys were the outlier day, much like Trent was the guy who went absolutely nuts the other day.
Doesn't this feel good? Isn't it going to be a great slate? You're just like, oh, I think Mario Hazonia is a good play today. Like, that never feels good, man. It never feels good at all. This is going to a lot of people are going to come out of this Portland game with like a lot of hate in their heart for something. I like Hazonia. He's my 4th overall guy on DraftKings right now relative to salary. There's just so many minutes there, and he's probably the best of everybody from like a per minute fantasy point guy. Like if we're ignoring Whiteside, Lillard, and Melo as the quote unquote stars, and yes, Carmelo, I'm using that term incredibly loosely for you. Whiteside to a lesser extent. Like Hazonia's the best of everything that's left, at least right now. I mean, you expect Anthony Simons and potentially Gary Trent to be better than Hazonia down the line, but no guarantees. Like he's 17% owned. That's too low. That's too low right now.
Yeah, I think people will just see the Trent numbers and think, oh, that's going to happen again. And I guess Trent's ownership has come down enough to pretty much the same level as Hazonia. But before it was looking like he would be a bit higher. And I think to me, if I had to choose between the two, like Trent's price a little bit more appealing, but Hazonia is certainly cheap enough. We've seen him spike 40 fantasy point days before. Granted, it hasn't happened as often in Portland. Not as much usage for him to go around. And even last game, he only had 11% usage or a little bit under 12%. But he did get those 29 minutes. And that's sort of the thing to me where like, Nasir Little, I think you could make an argument for, like, just because he's minimum price. But if he's going to get 20 minutes and Hazonia's going to get 29, same thing with Jalen Horde, like, I'd rather take the stab at Hazonia, a guy who's been a proven fantasy player and could be seeing just shy of 30 minutes against a Golden State team who's just defensively not offering up a lot.
How many Portland guys do you expect to be in, like, your primary lineup?
So pretty much Lillard and Whiteside are in almost everything, and then it's a rotating third or fourth. Where I have some with Simons, I have some with Simons and Trent, I have some with Hazonia, but no Simons and Trent. But I think it's just like those two for me, I think are worth like positionally. I think they're just more valuable than most of the guys around them. And both guys are just underpriced too. Like that's the thing that's odd for DraftKings. Like Lillard at 8,400, that's low for even on McCollum day where he's healthy. Now there's no McCollum out there, so Lillard's usage goes up to 34%, assist rate goes up to 37%. It's a really, really good spot for Lillard, and Whiteside as well. Has had big games against Golden State this year. They miss a lot of shots. Whiteside's going to be in position. They don't even play that fast, so Whiteside's going to be right by the rim, hanging out, doing nothing. So I think for me, like those guys, I find it to be impossible to fade today. Like I really don't want to get away from them, even though I forced myself to in a handful of lineups.
Yeah, I might have been a little quick to jump on the Lillard's 46% ownership as being too high. I think that's probably right where it is. I have his implied ownership like just slightly under that. Devin Booker right above him is being owned sort of right where he should be. DeAndre Ayton right below him, essentially right where he should be. DeMar DeRozan, same story. So yeah, I think that's better than I thought it was at first blush.
Yeah, look, and 50% owned player, never the best, especially when you do have some games to choose from. But like, would you rather go Mitchell against Indiana? Probably not. Would you rather go I love DeMar DeRozan today, and we haven't talked about him because my revelations on him, where I really dug down deep on it, because I had seen some stuff with the Spurs games recently, and was listening to a podcast explaining it better, why DeRozan all of a sudden is playing better. He's been over 43 fantasy points in his last 6 games. His price has come up enough where I don't think he'll pop in optimizers. He's the one guy I think is a pivot at that price point, I guess, besides Booker, who just won't be on people's radar at all. Averaging 1.4 fantasy points per minute so far in the new year. As he's really just dominating the ball. Just watching the game, you can tell a real appreciable difference between him earlier in the year and now. But besides him, like I just don't see anywhere you'd want to go that's going to offer you both the floor and the upside of Lillard. Like Lillard's kind of in his class of his own on DraftKings tonight.
Yeah, seeing where his price is in relationship to some of these other guards that we would consider to be similar, it's Lillard the whole way.
Yeah. So I guess let's talk about the other side, because one other value play who I think is one way you could get away a little bit. Willie Cauley-Stein intrigues me at center.
Yeah.
He's so cheap, and he played up to 33 minutes. All right, he played 33 minutes against Denver the other day. Another matchup where you need some size. You would think you'd want him out there against Whiteside today. I guess you can make an argument you might want to put in Spellman to stretch him out a little, but they've been giving Willie the minutes. His price is so low. How are you feeling about Willie? Because to me, the fact that he's under 10% projected ownership just seems, I wouldn't say asinine, but just seems like a little bit crazy to me, given all the other value that we have out there. And he's a pivot. He's for sure a pivot.
Yeah, so you're obviously rolling the dice a little bit on minutes. I put him in for 24. I think that it's certainly reasonable that he plays 28. I also think it's reasonable that he plays 16 because it's the Warriors, and guy 4 through 11 are all pretty similarly not very good. With that said, I have him ranked quite a bit higher than where he's showing up from an ownership perspective. I think that his implied ownership should be somewhere around 20, and we have it at 9, or we just call it 10. So I would like to be around double on Willie Cauley-Stein. I think that's worth a shot, especially in this spot where he could potentially pick up some extra run against not Hassan Whiteside, which should go really well for him. I mean, Willie Cauley-Stein is like mildly talented. He's been bad lately, but worth a shot.
Yeah, and he's projected right now. Osmo has him projected for 23 minutes. And if he does get to, let's say, 28, like that projection is a smash. Like right now, I would have him at under just 6% or a 6x return on value with 23 minutes. So if he gets to 28, if he gets to 33, like, my God, I think that's he could certainly be not productive in those minutes, but just Whiteside's positioning, the way that Whiteside makes things happen, like it's been one of the better DVP center matchups, which is one of the ones only I will look at for centers, because you're just right next to the rim all game with Whiteside. It's not like he's out on the top of the key. So Willie's going to have a shot to get some rebounds and some shots at the rim. And I think to me, that's sort of the ideal Willie spot where you're not asking him to get out of his type, you're not asking him to do anything different. And defensively, I think you'd want him on the floor too for switching. So I think there's a lot of reasons to me where Willie can earn some extra minutes today.
Yeah, and honestly, like that's basically what we're betting on, right? But he's enough of a known commodity in the NBA that like you feel pretty comfortable about what you're getting out of Willie Cauley-Stein. But his playing time is totally just a crapshoot today. And if you're right, I think that is a very good spot to look for when someone is owned at less than 10% on a 5-gamer.
I need to point out one thing in the YouTube chat. And again, we're not in the business of trying to single people out to be dicks, but this take is just one of the more outlandish ones from Luigi's. Yeah, Lillard gets too tired with McCollum out. I'll fade.
What? Yeah, no.
He's a professional basketball player who played through an upper respiratory infection the last 2 games and had pretty good results against tougher teams. So I don't think he gets too tired. He gets too tired with McCollum out.
I mean, like maybe you could think his shot won't be as good because he'll be more tired, and I think that is a relevant statement. However, he's going to play every single minute he can handle if this game is close because he is by far the best player on the floor. It's not particularly close in that regard. I mean, I have him in for 36 minutes. If you told me he played 40, I'd be like, yeah, I get it. The game was close and they needed Dame's creation. He's all they've got. He's all they've got. So, yeah, I'm not too worried about him being like, coach, I need a gas.
Yeah. I mean, look, yeah, if his jumper is a little flat, you know what? He's still going to get some layups. He's still going to get some assists. Still going to get some rebounds on bounced balls from the threes they'll put up errantly and without anybody willing to make it. I think it's just very much the possibility of overthinking things for yourself. And for tournament purposes, there are many reasons to try to fade a guy, but the fact that he's going to get too tired because the other player who soaks up a lot of usage and assist upside and ball handling time, not the way to approach DFS generally, I would say. Try to err on the side of helping rather than harassing for today. In the name of Dr. King, I'll try to help more than harass.
There you go.
Also, just one real fast thing. Shout out to Dr. King. That's like a weird transition, but it's his day. And obviously we have a holiday for him, but one of the best Americans we have, like really in terms of just being a good human being and treating people the right way, regardless of what your race is. Obviously, if I were an African-American person, I'd feel certainly even more of a kindred spirit, but just one of the more inspirational people we have. And I think if you have 5 minutes today, it's worth just reading whatever's on CNN about him. Just like do a little bit of research besides what you learn in history class, because he's a good dude to admire and adhere to in these troubled times of ours, right, Josh?
He very much deserves his day, unlike someone like Christopher Columbus, who was a terrible person.
Hard for me to go against a fellow Chris, but yeah, perhaps that one hasn't aged quite as well over the course of time.
Not so much.
One other guy in this game, and I really think there are a lot of ways you can go in this game because the value is kind of there on Golden State side, but D'Angelo Russell, I don't get his DraftKings price either. Insane usage, over 32% usage on the year. Assist rates there as well. Portland, not a good defensive team and certainly not getting any better with the guys they have out of the lineup now. Russell, to me, he's right there with me. He's very much a part of the cores that I have with Lillard and Whiteside. How do you feel about Russell today? And, never one of your favorite players, but he's been filling up box score wise and fantasy wise for Golden State.
I think he's owned about where he should be. I have him ranked 12th on the slate. I have his implied ownership just a hair under what we're projecting. So, if I got to him anywhere in the 25 to 35% range, I think it'd be perfectly reasonable. The price is just kind of silly. 7,600 for a guy that is the entire team. And it takes a lot for me to say something like that, given my stance on D'Angelo Russell, but who else is it going to be? It's not Damian Lee or Alec Burks, at least not from a primary perspective. So sign me up. I'm in for D'Angelo Russell. I think that's probably the extent of really interesting. I would like to have Russell, Willie Cauley-Stein. I would probably be lighter on Russell, but I would like to probably have more Draymond and more Willie Cauley-Stein. That's where I'd be looking in Golden State. Now, if Glenn Robinson ends up out, that probably changes.
Yeah, Draymond's priced pretty well for this spot. And, Whiteside in the middle is certainly going to take a little bit off the table for what Draymond does best. But a competitive game that you would expect, or at least you would expect one to be competitive, his price is really reasonable. I didn't get quite as much as I would have liked just because Gordon Hayward keeps popping up for me and his price just seems too low. And that's really the reason I guess I got a little bit less overall. Wiggins too, like the lineup construction today because of how guys shake out with positionality. Like Draymond being a point guard, small forward, I think he's a little bit harder to get to than I would like for some of the guys I want to play. But I'm with you on him. And Alec Burks too, I feel like is a guy who usually pops up for you. He and Damian Lee are also in the mix. I guess which Warriors do you find the most playable?
None, maybe? Honestly? I don't think that I think it's Russell, Draymond, and Willie Cauley-Stein for me. I'm not sure that I'd be... Now, FanDuel's a different story. If you're playing on FanDuel, you can get Damian Lee at 4,900 or Alec Burks at 5,200. Those are different prices. I don't have much interest at all in 6K Damian Lee or 5,700 Alec Burks. Eric Paschall probably would look okay if Glenn Robinson were out, but he's still already 5,300. So as far as I'm concerned, I don't find the Golden State side to be all that appealing.
Okay. I guess we'll disagree a little there because I'm certainly more intrigued by them overall. I mean, the Lee part I think is tough with his price, but Burks I think could certainly have some upside. And I think I'm willing to take those stabs because Portland's defense is so bad, and I think this game, in terms of being a late night hammer, I find to be one of the more appealing ones.
That's fair.
Let's go to Boston because they also are a team that has some decent values. And I mentioned Hayward; his price is down. He just had the crazy day. Of course, I was with Jaylen Brown, and Kemba's out. I think Kemba's also out over the weekend. So certainly more usage go around for him and Jason Tatum there, but Hayward shouldn't be this cheap either. And honestly, neither should Tatum. It's a tough matchup against LA, but all these guys are jumping out to be Jaylen Brown as well. Kemba to a lesser extent, but still the price is pretty reasonable for him. Are you getting anything from Boston in a spot where people may be afraid to go because the Lakers defense has been so good?
Yeah, really like Jaylen Brown, really like Gordon Hayward. I guess really like Jason Tatum. I have Brown 5th, Hayward 9th, and Tatum 10th on DK, so it's hard for me to separate those guys all that much. Obviously, I would have more Brown than Hayward than Tatum. But I mean, at 17% a piece, I feel like they're all going under owned somehow. Which feels impossible. Like I have Jaylen Brown's implied ownership double what we're projecting right now. I have Tatum's north of that 17% number. Gordon Hayward's close to double. Like I want to have way more Boston. Terrible spot. Matchup against the Lakers with AD in. Not fun. They're good defensively. Not as good defensively on the wing. So it's really just going to be all about how successful are they in their attacks and kickouts. They should have some threes coming to them.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think this game kind of sets up in a playoff way where the guys maybe don't grade out as well as you. That's the thing, though. Like, they're priced so cheaply where they grade out well for me. And I think that's what kind of throws me for a loop where if these guys were all 7K playing the Lakers, probably not getting there as much. But you have guys from 5,500 up to 7,000, even Enes Kanter. That price down now to 4K. He's not getting as good of a minutes as the backup, but he's priced now for what a backup should be, who still has big upside if he does earn those more minutes going against probably Dwight in that second unit. I don't know. Like, I think there's a lot of room for these guys. So I agree. I guess, how would you feel? Like, are any of them more of a priority than the others, or any of them more relevant to you? How would you handle them if you want to get some Celtics and try to get above the field?
I would be well above the field on Jaylen Brown. Like, I'm guessing just based on my rankings that I would somewhere in the neighborhood of 40%, given where my numbers are coming in. I assume I'd be relatively neutral to Jason Tatum. Hayward, I'd be slightly higher if all of these 17% held. Hayward, I would be slightly higher. But it seems to me like Jaylen Brown is the guy that's going to jump off the page more. And a lot of that is more GPP based than anything else. Jaylen Brown's standard deviation for his fantasy production is a little wider than Gordon Hayward's. So he's hitting a target score a little bit more often, just making up for the fact that he's $500 more expensive.
Yeah. Okay. That seems fair. I'm a little more on Team Hayward than Team Brown, just because I always like that Hayward can contribute in a couple different categories. I mean, Brown can too. He does rebound at a pretty aggressive rate and does sometimes get to the double digits there. But like Hayward can rebound, can get some assists, can obviously score. I think to me, he's the most appealing option. But yeah, I think relative to the overall field, I agree that Brown just seems underowned. Hayward seems underowned. And Tatum's price being a little bit higher, a little tougher to get there, but he probably has the highest ceiling out of all of them on a night-to-night basis. So, yeah, I really don't have an issue with any Celtics.
I don't have a ton of interest in Kemba, but I don't think that anybody really has a ton of interest in Kemba.
Yeah, I don't mind him. The price is just high enough, though, where like he seems the most appropriately priced out of all of them. Like he probably shouldn't be more expensive than Tatum generally, I would think. Yeah. But he certainly is today. So that's something. Question in the premium Slack from F Man, and I skimmed past this one, but would you have any groups for Portland? Do you find any of them to particularly conflict, or are they cheap enough where you don't find that to be an issue?
I would probably only want one of Simons, Trent, Hazonia, or two at max of Simons, Trent, Hazonia. I don't get the sense that having all three of those would be like a particularly great spot. So I would probably do two max there. You got to assume Lillard, Whiteside, and Melo are going to close. Who you determine the final two to be is sort of where you're at, but you're expecting that to be somewhere in that Simons, Trent, Hazonia group. So I would try to limit myself from not having one of the guys that would be in the closing five.
Yeah,
it's not like Lillard's going to be like, they're going to be like at the end of the bench, bud.
Yeah.
If you want to get a lot of Lillard, Whiteside, Melo, I think that's fine.
Sorry, Nasir Little's having too good of a day. Take a seat, Damien. Yeah, I agree. I think, yeah, I would err on the side of what you said. The 2 out of the 3 of the Trent, Simons, Hazonia, I guess Bermuda Triangle of Portland potential chalk. And those guys, I think, you'll probably find an outlier or 2 out of them. And at the very least, I think you'll find an outlier for one of them out of those 3.
Right. I'd be
Um,
shocked if like all 3 of them were bad.
yeah, I agree. I guess through this, let's go back to the slate because I want to go back to San Antonio real fast because somebody, I think it was Antoine Murphy, one of our regulars, said he actually just brought it back up. Suns Spurs stack for the win is what he's saying. He finds that to be a viable pivot to the potential Golden State Portland stacks out there that will be popular today. I didn't full stack San Antonio. I'm really not game stacking too much because unless the value is there in a meaningful way. But San Antonio at Phoenix, I agree. The game environment here should be pretty good. Highest combined total on this shortened slate, 229.5 implied points here. Phoenix's defense not that good. San Antonio's defense even worse. And it is a slight pace up for San Antonio. What are you getting out of this game, if anything? We talked about both DeRozan and Booker, but are you getting any Aldridge? Are you getting DeJounte Murray? Are you getting any of Oubre and Ayton? How do you feel about this game?
It feels more like filler on the San Antonio side than anything else. Like, obviously, DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge are always going to play like 34 minutes in a close game. You're all gravy on that one. But is anybody ever really confident that you're going to get the other 3 guys correct on the day that they play the extra 3 or 4 minutes? Because I'm not. Could be Derek White one day. Could be Patty Mills the next day. It could be Bryn Forbes one day getting 30 minutes. Lonnie Walker can suddenly play 24. I hate trying to sort through San Antonio. If anybody ever pops for me, it's usually just because someone is on like a lull of their price swing. Like Patty Mills at 3,700 today. Sure. I think that's a reasonable punt flyer. I have him ranked 26th on DraftKings. Bryn Forbes, I have ranked 40th. He's kind of getting the love already. I mean, 14%, 8% compared to, between him and Mills is essentially the same. But like, I would rather just, take a share of Mills if I knew that those were be equal. But I would rather just, like, LaMarcus Aldridge, I think probably stands out most to me, and he stands out most to the public. He has the highest ownership of anybody on the Spurs. I wouldn't go too wild on anybody here.
Yeah, I like Aldridge at his price point. I think just the one thing that jumps out to me for the same reasons, the ownership is just DeRozan under 10% is just a move that I think not a lot of guys under 10% today on this kind of shortened slate where we have so much value that are just going to be mostly overlooked, but I think have a pretty big upside. Like DeRozan, the fact that he's put up almost 50 fantasy points. They played Miami twice in the last week. He did that against Miami. Phoenix, certainly not Miami in terms of their defense, especially on the wings. And DeRozan contributing in a bunch of categories, getting the assists up there, getting just shy of triple doubles in a lot of games. I think this kind of game environment is really good for him. And as Josh mentioned, he's one of the guys with secure minutes. And I just think the opportunity is the biggest for him out of the Spurs right now. So I would err. For me, I have I have 3 times the field on that ownership, but I would try to get at least with it because DeRozan, I think, is one guy who has some GPP upside today.
You prefer DeRozan to Booker?
I think so, yeah.
Rubio, I guess. We can name 2 guys in this game, both prices right next to his.
So Rubio, I think, is priced up too much now, especially with Oubre back in there. I don't like him unless he's going to get the clear runway of having no Booker, no Oubre. Booker, I think I have more DeRozan than Booker today, just because, again, I think he just gets chopped up enough where I don't know that Booker is a sure thing to really get where he wants, whereas I do think DeRozan's going to give me 40, and I don't think he's going to necessarily give me less than 45. I think Booker, it's hard to say the same for Booker, or it's not hard to say the same for Booker. But I do think with Booker, there's too many guys there where it's like the Spurs are running through DeRozan right now. He is the linchpin of that offense. So I would still favor DeRozan, but on a projection basis, I do have Booker projected better. So,
okay.
Yeah,
I just like a slight lean to Booker here, but I think the ownership is like kind of where I have them.
Yeah, that seems fair. How do you feel about Oubre and Ayton? Because Oubre, I think, is a guy who's really not going to benefit from Ayton having this run he's had. His last 2 games were 52 fantasy points. And certainly he did those without Oubre. So I think they're both going to chop a little bit off of each other. But I think Oubre is going to get out worse from that scenario. How do you feel about Oubre today in this game, coming back in after his concussion issues?
So Oubre, I think he's properly owned. I expected to love DeAndre Ayton, and that is not the case. And I'm very surprised by that. Like,
just because of Baines being out?
Yeah, I got him in for 34 minutes. And that's still just kind of like, meh, okay, I can get like 10%, 15% and call it a day. No one stands out for me from Phoenix. Like, if I'm being honest, Kelly Oubre stands out the most for me, but no one looks like someone I would have a ton of. Everybody looks properly owned. I would rotate through Booker, Ayton, Rubio, Oubre, maybe a little bit of Dario Saric in the 10 to 15% range, just clear across the board. They all look too similar to me.
Okay. I still got some Ayton just because I think the upside is he's the most likely, I think, to hit his upside in this game where you have all the guys and they're all the core guys, I guess, besides Baines, in there and available. I just don't like with Oubre. I feel like he's the guy who gets lost in the shuffle. Like the price is good. Ayton's now been priced up for him having the monster days, which is kind of scary. So I guess from a value perspective, I could see going to Oubre, but I just think he's also the guy like he's the easiest for me to see getting lost in the shuffle, the worst per minute player. I think that's me just would spook me off of Oubre today when you have Ayton in there on a hot streak, shooting over 20 times a game. Like I think that cuts into Oubre enough where I don't know that he's going to be the same Oubre if Ayton keeps getting the big run of minutes he's been getting.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I would want to have some because I still think that it could be a good spot. But like, Danny more likely than Booker? I don't think so. I mean, I have Booker hitting the target score 12% of the time, Oubre 11, Rubio 8. I mean, we were talking like very marginal changes between these guys. They're all at similar price points. You expect one of them to go for 6 to 7x and one of them to underperform, and I just don't see like any real clear indicators of a guy that I would want to grab.
It seems fair. I got a question from XXX Achilles XXX asking, who do you prefer between Ayton and Sabonis on DK? Which is an interesting question because you have Sabonis going into the Utah Buzzsaw matchup and Ayton in a much more hospitable matchup, at least on paper, against San Antonio. I have more Ayton, but I do think that's just more the way that I built my lineups. I never mind Sabonis in any matchup. I don't know. I guess I would still go Ayton, but it's probably closer than it should be. And the ownership actually seems pretty fair for both. You have Ayton at 14%, Sabonis at 13%. That seems about right.
I prefer Sabonis by like the slightest of margins, and ultimately I would have comparable amounts of both. I have Ayton ranked 32nd. That's overall relative to salary. I have Sabonis ranked 25th. So if I gave one additional minute to Ayton or took one from Sabonis, they'd be the same guy. Well within my like coin flip territory. If I put them against each other, Sabonis. Oh, Ayton doesn't have a thing in his name. I have it literally 50-50.
Okay. So, yeah, that's as close as it can get.
Yeah. So like
so flip a coin and go with that choice.
Yeah, it's make two lineups. Play them both.
Yeah. They both are very stable plays, and Sabonis in particular. There's consistency in every matchup and how he's randomly able to spike upside in matchups that you're like, oh, I can't believe he did that. Like he's had big games against Miami. He's had big games in various situations that you wouldn't expect it. Wouldn't surprise me if he went into Utah here, but that's a really low combined total for this game, the lowest on the slate with 216. Yeah, 216 for these two teams.
Yeah.
So I would just err on the side of Ayton, I think, a little bit more, but I agree they're pretty much the same play. Indiana at Utah overall, are you getting anybody from this game, or are you mostly not getting anything? Because people in the chat talking about this is a really bad spot. Indiana playing in altitude again, or having played in altitude recently. I guess some people have concerns about that. I don't know how much that matters here. It's probably baked into the Vegas total. But just two defenses, two slow teams that are both solid. I don't feel the need to get much of this game.
I completely agree. The highest ranked guy I have right now on DraftKings, and I would not be comfortable with this at all. I would probably knock the minutes down slightly. Let's see. Let me first, before I say it out loud, let me see where Alex has him. Yeah, I would probably knock the minutes down by 2. I'm just going to do that and never tell anybody that it was Jeremy Lamb, but it was Jeremy Lamb. Like everybody's, Rudy Gobert is 19th overall for me. That's the highest ranked guy I have here. So I would rotate through Gobert. Like these guys just don't stand out because I would have so much exposure to Portland. Gobert, Mitchell, Boyan, Ingles, Royce O'Neal. Those 5 guys are all ranked between 19th and 33rd. That is the epitome of filler across DK. And sure enough, when you look at their ownership, 12, 13, 14, 14, 17.
Yeah, I got a little bit of Royce just because of the other value plays,
Yeah.
and I don't hate the concept. And anytime you get a guy who's making $9 million a year and an extension, I feel like that's maybe he'll be more motivated. But
Kudos
yeah, I
to
don't
him
know.
for
Like,
securing the bag.
yeah, no, I agree. Especially after they brought another body in there, and they've kind of Conley coming back. Like, there are ways to for him to start getting less minutes. So it's nice to pay him just to make him feel good if he does lose some minutes around the horn. But do you think Royce is a viable pivot to those guys, given that he's the same price point and maybe he can just be passable if some of the Portland guys are mediocre?
Oh, I certainly do.
Okay.
Like, I like Hazonia a lot more than I like Royce O'Neal, and he's not getting ownership. But if you're asking me, like, is Anthony, like, would I pivot from Simons to Royce O'Neal in a large field GPP if I had like one bullet in it? I think that'd be an interesting way to go if you were really chalky everywhere else. But like, I see O'Neal comparable to Hazonia. I'd probably put him a little bit behind Gary Trent, a little bit behind Simons, but I think he's one of the sub 4K guys that are viable. It's Simons, Royce O'Neal, Hazonia, Trent. I don't have much interest in Little or Forbes. Those are guys that are getting ownership. I think Patty Mills could also be lumped into that group.
I got some Little, and I'm not the proudest of it, but he has spiked an upside before. He does rebound well. He does shoot some ill-advised threes, so there are ways for him to exceed value there. But overall, like, in terms of a logical DFS play, and also Little being minimum priced, I think gives him a little bit more appeal. But
yeah,
for a little bit more to get to O'Neal as a guy who has a very stable role in the rotation, like, I think that seems like a logical move. If you are just terrified of the Portland chalk, or you find a reason you just don't want to be there, or as Josh mentioned, if your lineup is just chalky overall, that's one pivot point you could make is Royce, who'll just be out there doing probably not a lot, but probably get 20 fantasy points.
Oh, for sure.
So here's another game that I'm intrigued to hear your thoughts on, because I love Andrew Wiggins today. And not a sentence you really ever want to say out loud, especially on a show where we are theoretically touting our picks and talking about these guys. Wiggins, much better player with Karl Anthony Towns on the floor in a way that's hard to ignore. 1.3 fantasy points per minute with him. Certainly going to also be helped out by no Jeff Teague out on the team anymore. And Towns, to me, I think, going to draw some attention away, going to also give him a little more assist upside. And Wiggins did just have a triple double. Granted, he did play Toronto, so maybe a little bit of Canadian pride coming through there. But Denver's defense is not as good as it was last year. And I mentally keep avoiding them and keep pivoting away. They're still playing slow, but defensively on the wings in particular, they're just not defending as well over the last maybe month or so. I'm big on Wiggins. I'm double the field on him. How are you feeling about Andrew Wiggins' prospects?
I like him. I don't like him that much.
That's fair. I mean, it's hard to ever feel enthusiastic about Andrew Wiggins, one could say.
Yeah, so I see him pretty comparably to like Jason Tatum, Marcus Aldridge. These are guys that I would want to have somewhere in the mid-20s in ownership. Seems like Wiggins isn't getting there, Aldridge is. So like I would be pretty comfortable flip-flopping those guys. But I would rather, I dramatically prefer Jaylen Brown and Melo to Wiggins. So I wouldn't be able to get too high in that price range. But I do like Wiggins in comparison to Aldridge if Aldridge is going to be more owned.
Okay. Yeah, Wiggins just jumps out to me as a guy in a competitive game playing at home here against a team in Denver who I think the rep is still a little bit higher than what they've actually been producing recently. Just every time I reload my sheets, I see the defensive rating for Denver gets a little bit worse. And I think on the wing in particular, without Gary Harris, Torrey Craig, if he's starting again, I think that's certainly not the most ideal matchup, but Wiggins contributing in a variety of ways. And a triple-double from him, I think that's a very positive cosign. Though, again, the Canadian thing does scare me a little bit because he could certainly have that big day playing Toronto, and then he'll just go back to doing that. He just wants to get the CBC headlines. He wants to be all over Nolan's favorite channels again.
Yeah, he's on TSN.
Yeah, TSN Sportsnet's covered him all 24/7. Like, oh, our Canadian hero has come back and slain our hearts for one time. On the other side, actually, I guess to close the loop on Minnesota, Towns, would you be willing to go there? Hasn't topped 30 minutes yet since he's been back, but he has played well against Denver. His last 3 games, he's been about 59.5 fantasy points going against the Nuggets and Jokic. Certainly a guy who has the upside if he gets the minutes, but the minutes haven't been there yet. Do you have any stabs at all at Towns?
Probably not. Just I've got him in for 30 minutes. Just doesn't seem like it's going to be enough. I'd probably be more likely to take a shot at Shabazz Napier at 5,100. Not like any sort of, massive shot. I'm not trying to make it sound like he's a lock button. But Napier is the guy that I like second most from Minnesota behind your boy Wiggins.
Yeah. I can't wait to die on the Wiggins hill today. Being my boy, but
I'd like Wiggins to die on a hill, man. I'm still mad at him.
That's why people don't play Wiggins enough when he's in decent spots and priced appropriately. But yeah, I agree with Napier too. Like the price looks good on him. I certainly went other ways. As I mentioned, just a lot of Russell, a lot of Lillard, my guard spots. But Napier, the price is reasonable value, and he's had more assist upside, not as much usage, but the assist upside has been there for him with Towns back in the lineup. So I don't hate that.
Yeah.
Also, don't really hate Covington. I think this kind of game is one where you could see him get some looks from three when you do have, Wiggins drawing some attention, Towns drawing some attention, even Napier drawing a little bit of attention because he can score. I think both Napier and Covington, are kind of appealing going against a Denver defense that's weaker. And I wouldn't mind them in lineups where I didn't have Wiggins or Towns for sure.
That's another spot which we just kind of talked about where I would just rather have a lot more Carmelo Anthony or Jaylen Brown than Covington.
Okay. No, that's fair. Yeah.
It's this like high fives, low sixes range where like I've got pretty firm lines drawn in the sand. So we'll see how well that shakes out.
How about Denver? Monty Morris has not been doing it yet, but still getting big minutes, still in the high 20s each game. He didn't get closer last game, even though Malik Beasley did not take his run in that last time out. Not as much of the lead ball handler all the time because of Will Barton being in the mix, but Morris still priced well on a projection basis, looks good. And now people are off of him. He's going to be under 10% projected ownership for our ownership projections at Osmo.com. How are you feeling about the prospects here for Monty Morris on a slate where people seem to have forgotten that he was the value play du jour just 4 days ago?
Yeah, he's going wildly underowned. I would probably have 3 or 4 times what we have right now. I just don't know what else I would want in that area. Like I would rather have him over Murray, Napier, Lamb, Saric, Jeremy Grant, Willie Cauley-Stein. I probably wouldn't get down. I would have to get down to Simons. So I think Monty Morris stands out pretty significantly in that spot. I have his implied ownership at 29%. I greatly prefer him. I have a lot of him on Yahoo where he's $11. Those contests are running right now. But yeah, I think Morris is going wildly underrepresented in this one. It's a big pace up spot for Denver.
Yeah, and against the bad defense too, that's gotten worse with Towns back in the lineup.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. Like I think, it's tough to go to Morris when he's had the 2 down games, but the Golden State game was a pretty good matchup. But when you have Beasley shooting like he did off the bench, that's going to be not the best situation overall. And then the other game they had, I believe, was that was Indiana. Indiana got 29 minutes. The usage still not there, but he did shoot 1 for 7. So if he just shoots a little bit better, there are certainly some ways for him to be more productive and build a bit. 5 assists were there for him as well. So I agree. Like I think Morris, I do have some of him, not as much as some of the other guys that we've talked about so far, but at under 10% ownership, it's easy to forget about him and to think he's never going to be good, but he has been good before. And his numbers have been good for 2 years now. So I don't hate that stab at him going against the pace ups, as Josh mentioned, the pace up spot against a bad defense. How about Barton and Jokic? Are you getting any of these guys, or Michael Porter Jr. or Jeremy Grant? Jeremy Grant, a guy, people in the chat right now saying pretty decent value play. I would agree. I don't know about his upside with everybody in the lineup right now, but and with Porter kind of breathing down his neck for minutes. But I do have a little bit of Grant. I do have a little bit of Porter, even though his price is at a really stupid level on DK. And Barton, I tried to make my way to make sure to get with the field. He's got 5% projected ownership, but he has been a lot of the lead ball handler now with Murray out. What else on the Nuggets? Anything appealing to you?
Jokic and Grant are the only 2 guys I would expect to have, and I think that they are both just slightly overowned. So as it is, so I don't think that I would have much Denver. Maybe a couple shares of Jokic and Grant and 150. Morris would be the guy that I had my eye on most.
People in the YouTube chat right now seem to be confused, maybe, or unless I missed something about Kelly Oubre's status. Oubre is going to be back in today. He went through shoot around. They said he's back from he cleared the concussion protocol, so there's nothing keeping him out.
Yeah, best I can tell, he's just going to be business as usual. I'm going to double check just to make sure.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything. I just saw this morning that
probable.
Yeah,
and it's like he's coming back from a knee injury or something. He can play. He's just going to play.
Yeah, and it's not like he's not going to be out of shape or anything. It's not like there's any sort of hurdles there. He just got a concussion, which sucks, but that's usually not a thing that limits guys' minutes when they're coming back if they've been, if they've been playing recently enough. And he only missed 2 games there.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that sort of covers the bases of the Denver Minnesota game. I'm trying to see if there's anything else. Yeah, I feel like we covered most of the guys that I find important. Is there anybody that we haven't hit on that you find to be relevant and worth talking about with the people? Because we've pretty much discussed all of my core plays here, and the basically just did the Eddie deal of giving you guys my lineups for the most part. So anybody popping up for you that we haven't hit on?
Let's take a look. Let's see. Let me sort my guys and see who's at the top and who has low ownership in that regard. So I guess I would probably try to look to get a little bit more Gary Trent in relationship to the field. Hit on him. We hit on all these dudes. Devin Booker, I'm a little higher on than the public. Nothing crazy. Monty Morris, I just talked about. That's a big one. Willie Cauley-Stein, we talked about at the beginning. Shabazz Napier. So I hit on all of my guys that I think need to be 2x the field type stuff. I think that we've put this pretty much on lock. Who's the highest owned guy that I don't have in my player pool? That's a good question. Malcolm Brogdon.
Okay. I didn't get any Brogdon at all today.
Yeah, I would have 0. Brogdon and Lamb, Burks and McConnell, and Damian Lee are the only guys 5% or higher that wouldn't be in my player pool.
I got a little bit of Burks. I don't mind him in this kind of situation going against Portland, whose defense stinks. And, I certainly prefer Russell. I have a lot more Russell, but I could see Burks having use in this kind of situation.
Probably a decent pivot, I guess. I wouldn't feel comfortable not having him. That one makes me a little queasy. But at the same time, I don't love the price tag.
I guess sort of a premature, and also if you guys want to drop some either ors and stuff, it's a little bit of a slower day here because of the holiday and the timing of the show, but hit the like button because we appreciate that. First of all, if you want some more data right now, we did just get a run of ownership updates before, in between when I last mentioned it. And now let's go check that out right now at awesemo.com/join and use that promo code live before lock for half off your first week. Any of our Awesemo Plus weekly packages on there. But the ownership for the Portland guys, in our projections, at least, seems kind of reasonable. I guess maybe people have been once bitten, twice shy about Anthony Simons, but he's going to be under 40%. Gary Trent, I guess we're not expecting people to really take, as you mentioned, not expecting people to take that big leap after he went nuts last game. He's under 20%. Are any of these guys does the ownership spook you on any of these guys in the most recent run? I guess Jaylen Brown's come up slightly, so maybe the people behind the scenes heard your great praise for him. But any of these ownerships scare you off?
I would say that the one I like the least would be Simons, because he's I have his implied at 35 and he's already at 37. Whereas I have Trent's a little higher than that actually, and he's massively lower. So it's not as if I don't like Simons. I do. He grades out as one of my top 10 plays, but just relative to the field, there's enough on his own team that I think that that would probably end up being the spot where I got a little lighter. I would also be the most nervous about that given his role with the team, but with Dame out there dominating, might not be the worst idea in the world. I'm sure I'll pay for that in the long run, but he's the guy that's getting the most ownership, where I'd be like, okay, there are other options than you on your own team.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that. I think Simons, I'm a little bit under the field on him. I think actually, no, because no, he's still under 40. Now I'm at 40 flat. So I'm just basically with the field, which I think for me being with the field is basically being under the field, because I do really load up on the guys I like a lot. And, Simons, I agree. I think there are ways the game can pull away from him. I think the other issue, or the issue with getting away from him, is that he's going to get some real clean looks today against Golden State. He's going to get some really nice chances for his shot to fall and for him to build that confidence. But certainly a guy too. And also one thing too, they do stagger minutes away from Lillard. I noticed in the rotations with McCollum out. So he's going to get a chance to do the crazy Simons things that we saw at the end of last year. He went absolutely nuts. And especially if Gary Trent doesn't go off. So I think there is a lot of hope for Simons to have upside, but I agree that there are enough ways that he could just be pulled down. If he gets you 20 fantasy points today, it's not going to kill you, but you're probably not winning a tournament with the ownership where it is.
Aaron Baines officially ruled out. Kelly Oubre available to play.
There we go. So we expected both those things to be happening, so I presume that changes nothing for anything.
Correct.
Elusive Smoke, one of our guys in Premium Slack, always good for a good tournament finish, but also good for a question. Can you guys touch on Rondo? He asks. It is a Rondo revenge game, and Rondo, the most spiteful human being on the planet, I just don't see him getting the minutes or runway to do it. One guy we didn't talk about in this game at all. What is Caldwell Pope doing? I know Davis has been out, but he's been back to good KCP randomly in the last 2 games and 2 not that great matchups. So I got more Caldwell Pope than I did Rondo, but would you have any Rondo at all with not great minutes projection?
I would have 0 Rondo. I would have 0 of anyone on the Lakers that wasn't named Anthony Davis or LeBron.
Okay.
And I probably wouldn't have Anthony Davis either, but so I would rather just not have anything from the Lakers for the most part. They're probably my least favorite team on the slate.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. I don't mind taking the stab at Caldwell Pope because he is a guy who, if you can time out his heaters, when he gets on the heater, it can be helpful. But getting Davis back in the lineup, I think I literally have like 2 out of 75 lineups today with Caldwell Pope, and that's enough for me. I could see him keeping it going, but I don't really have the most faith in it. Maybe with the minutes limit, that helps him out a little bit for Davis being capped at 28. But yeah.
James Harden is 1 for 17 from 3 today. I'm glad I loaded up on him, but 1 for 17.
He had the opportunity.
Yeah, look, any time that I can play someone that takes 17 threes, I want that dude, because there's going to be days where there's 10 of them that go in, but 1 for 17 is all sorts of brutal. Thanks a lot, James.
Somebody celebrated Martin Luther King a little too early yesterday. Some could say.
That man will celebrate any cause. By the way, the Lakers are not the team I like the least. That would be the Pacers, who I only have Sabonis in my player pool for.
Yeah, it seems fair. E-Ball asking the same question we answered earlier. What rule would you make for Trailblazers? Just got here. Just to circle back on that for 5 minutes left before locks to start getting your lineups in. Josh and I mutually agreed that probably just 2 out of the 3 of Trent, Simons, and Hazonia would be the one group that we'd feel comfortable making.
I mean, I guess add Nasir Little to that if he's someone that could show up for you, but I just wouldn't expect him to show up for me, so I didn't mention it before.
All right, let's see. We got an either. Oh, here's a question from Jason in the YouTube chat asking, do you think Whiteside and Dame are okay together in single entry? Yeah, they're those 2 guys. I wouldn't think there's any conflict.
100% okay.
Whiteside's going to do his damage with the many Golden State misses for the most part. It's not like he's going to suddenly score 50 points.
Yeah, those guys are not really correlated. I mean, I would assume that they are positively correlated pretty highly.
Let's see. Lucis Smoke just thinks that Rondo is a good, cheap, low-owned flyer type. Yeah, look, I get it. Look, the Rondo revenge is a very real thing. And, to quote our boy Eddie Fear, maybe let's take a quick box score look at Rondo, because I would be confident he's had some pretty good box scores going back into Boston. Oh, wait, why is it not popping up? That's annoying. Oh, Fantasy Cruncher. No, thank you, Fantasy Cruncher. Well, Rondo's box scores aren't popping up, but I know firsthand he's had some big games against Boston in the last few years. So I will accept that as a play at a low price point. And, really anytime you don't want to play Simons, you don't want to play Trent, you want to play those guys. If you're going to take a stab at a guy like Rondo, who's very much a tournament play, that's fine. Just hard to imagine getting the upside with LeBron in there. Like he's not going to suddenly see a ton of minutes. He's got to really make.
I would recommend just not playing him at all, or just send me your entry fee for that one.
I never hate people taking a stab at a guy because you get a hunch. Like I'm big on getting a clue, like an old school detective.
Yeah.
I think that's like the John Mulaney bit about bank robbers. Like I feel like that's how I feel about it. Where you got a hunch, it's fine. But
if you got a hunch, you probably ate something wrong earlier in the day.
I don't mind hunch plays at low ownership. I will never hate a hunch play, but yeah, he would not be one of the guys I would go to at that price point for me.
Bad clams.
That'll give you a lot of hunch. I
cannot believe that James Harden is just missing all of the threes. You would have thought that this was the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah, maybe he doesn't have much revenge in his heart for Oklahoma City, I guess.
I have him a lot on Yahoo, and 29, 9, and 6 is fine, but 1 for 17, man. You should have 15 more fantasy points. Oh my God.
I agree with the approach. I actually dusted off NBA 2K19 because I refused to upgrade to 2K20 this year. And I did the My Player, and my Player averages 15 made 3-pointers a game on 25 shot attempts. And
I want to go ahead and stop playing on rookie, my dude.
No, I'm playing on All-Star. So My player has been crafted to be the perfect analytic player. A usage rate of over 100, which I don't know how that happens, but yeah, that's my go-to.
Try passing.
Like some games I'll pass a little, but I have a 50 point per game average. I've been trying to keep up, and that's what life is. Also, I'm not even playing like full 48 minutes. That's me playing, I think, 24. So yeah, I am.
Jesus.
I find it therapeutic, just jack up shots. That's who I am, man.
7:28. We've got minute 45 to go before we hit lock. We got any questions?
That was weird. Yeah, the YouTube chat just died for me, and I refreshed. Looks like we got some now.
Thoughts on Clarkson? Nope.
I have one lineup with him because he spiked an upside with Conley back in, and that just struck me as weird. Where maybe he's going to benefit from Conley being in those same units, and again, that's one of my hunch plays, but not one that I made a lot of. So, yeah, but wouldn't be crazy if he spiked a little bit more of an upside with the space that Conley could create by just being out there. Kara Crimin asking thoughts on Cancer. Talked about him earlier. I think the price being down makes him a little bit more appealing. Minutes have not been there for him. He's definitely it's a Tice team right now, but it could flow back if the starters struggle. So I'd be okay playing him. Be more inclined to play him in a lineup without any other Celtics that kind of assume the Lakers shut down all the guys that we talked about earlier, who we found to be good values.
He's owned 7% in our ownership projections. I have his implied at 6.6, so seems about right to me. Leland asked the question, why do touts always have hats on videos? And we never really talk about it, but because we don't have day jobs. And it's not like we're doing our hair to sit at our house and, research basketball. So we wear hats. Yeah. Because it's easy.
And for me in particular on the West Coast, I some days don't have time to shower until after I'm done with all my work for the day. Yeah. So for me, and my hair is crazy long right now, as you can see. I do have the man bun setup still going. It's just more effort to do anything with my hair than it is to wear a hat. So, and also legally, I think we're required as part of the new gambling laws.
Fair enough.
Eddie gets away with it because Eddie has a job and can't play DFS because of his job conflicting. So that's why he gets away without wearing a hat, because he can't legally play DFS.
Exactly. He has a real job then. I think stupid Kings Heat game is going to OT, which is not helpful because I don't really have any part of it.
Who's going nuts in that game? Because Butler being out, I would think would benefit none the most, but I didn't play that slate.
I don't know. Hold on. Just checking off all the boxes to see who's playing best. Buddy Hield, Bagley. Buddy Hield has 40 fantasy points. Bagley has 37. So I don't know. Highest value guy. James Johnson, I guess. Nobody really.
Oh, really? Dragic Nordnun didn't go. That's surprising.
James Johnson is probably most, but it's not like he's going to be terribly highly owned. Bagley and Hield are probably the next two best, and that's Dragic is 25. But Bam Adebayo is 30. De'Aaron Fox has 30. Nunn has 30. People are getting bailed out.
Yeah, Nunn should have done more there, but I guess his price is high enough.
James Harden should have done more. Make a damn 3.
I would agree with that. I would agree for your sake. And we are locked now. So we did it. We made it to the cut line here. Do you want to do a quick round of Daddy Likes, or should we just call it quits?
Yeah, call it quits. No Daddy Likes today.
Yeah, Daddy Likes will be back later in the week. What is the schedule tomorrow? I know
so we have a
show for the show.
There's only one show. No strategy show tomorrow. No nothing. No deeper dive. There's only one game. Fast Eddie Fear and Chris Randone are going to break that game down for Live Before Lock tomorrow.
What is the game?
I have no idea.
I'm actually curious to see what game that is, because it's got to be a good one, right? If it's the only game.
Clippers Mavs at 8:30. So they will kick it off somewhere in that 7:30, 7:45 window.
All right, so that's a fun game, at least. No Paul George for that one, so you'll have a little bit of edge with the guys that are left in that lineup. So tune in tomorrow for that. And, of course, hit the like button before you go. Shout out to SuperDraft. We appreciate them being the future of DFS and offering you guys a special deal where right now, if you go to superdraft.io or download SuperDraft at the App Store, use the promo code OSMO when you sign up, and you can get yourself $20 free with a deposit of $100 or more. And that $20 in super cash is available right away. So go right now to superdraft.io and check out the multiplier tournament style, the future of DFS DFS right now. There are no limits, more winning over at SuperDraft. And awesemo.com/join if you want some night slate content. We will have some ownership updates for all that as well. Let's go to awesemo.com/join. Use that promo code live before lock for half off your first week of any Awesemo Plus package. Anything else you want to say here?
I think we're wrapped, man. Good luck to everybody tonight. I'm going to go be mad at James Harden for not making a damn three today.
Yeah, we appreciate all you guys. And if you had the day off, enjoy the rest of your day. And we'll see you guys around again soon. So enjoy your nights. Good luck.
Later.